Hi, my name is Lauren Dixon and I'm here to discuss about my work. I do documentary work and I'm an artist based within a rural society, currently living in Edinburgh. At the moment I'm doing work based on the Life in the UK test. This test can be found on the web, but it's what people take to get a British passport and to be declared as a British citizen. In this test, a lot of the questions are infactual and are declared not appropriately written. So the question I'm going to point out first, we've been in a community of rural people, is when did the first farmers come, where did the first farmers come from? In this question it declares that you have four options. This is Southeast Europe, Southwest Europe, Northeast America and Northeast Asia. The answer is Southeast Europe, but yet this does not make sense because why would farmers come from this area of the UK? The answer was given in the British Citizen Test. The first farmers arrived in Britain 6,000 years ago, around about, and the ancestry of these first farmers probably came from Southeast Europe. This is where I begin to question this answer. When beginning to talk about this, I want to identify why I have such a big problem with this test. Not only this, why I have a problem with this analysis of this phrase. I understand that I'm making this test easier for people who is not their first language and making it more simplistic, but I am a native speaker and I do struggle with language barriers myself, and hearing this communication, it does not sound factually correct in any sense. Through saying this, there are differences between simplifying a question and erasing entire truth. I prove this point. Let's pick part of this question. First, let's start with what is the definition of farmer. So let's start with first the definition of farmer. Is a person who owns and manages a farm. Let's take this apart now. What is a farm? The area of land and a building that is used to grow crops and rear an animal. So this makes me beg the question to differ. Why are we saying the first farmers came to Britain from Southeast Europe 6,000 years ago, as all farmers need animals and crops to survive, yet we are all omnivores? So this is where it comes into technicalities. So anyone before 6,000 years ago just simply existed. Now we describe these people as the early man. Simplest way of describing this is savages, hunters and gatherers. But nevertheless, this phrase, what is defined as a hunter-gatherer, is a member of nomadic people whose life clearly defined by hunting and fishing and harvesting wild food. In this context, farmers have existed since man has begun. Secondly, the definition of farmer is a historical term as a person to whom collection of tax was created for a fee. To clarify this is a definition of when humanity started creating a pecking order in a trading society of people, of whether no longer working the land and people who worked for tax for the benefits to get the land. This is also where you could say some of the class system began. So where did the notion of paying taxes and that as first farmer came from in Southeast Europe? Well, for this, let's go back to the beginning of the exploitation of person. So the first human was Aca genus Homo. Then it was Homo sapien. These are traits that we was thought to start with in Homo biology and language. The fossils and skeletons were found in East Africa, and to be exact, it is right in the centre of East Africa, and was thought to spread out over time. This is when the platelets were all joined together and the UK was still attached to France and so on, and through how we have developed. So now that we have discussed the notion of Homo sapien and the existence of the status of these skills do not cover where the notion of farmer come from Southeast Europe. I think I have answered this is an academic test for the idea of what is classed as a native and non-native species in the Britain culture as defined in the 1500s. Knowing that this means we do not have clear definition of what became before 1500s. For this, now let's analyse how many settlers, if you want to classify invaders, have come to Europe, UK over this time, and particularly to this day. I will now use the terms invade as a hypothetical correction. So firstly, as probably the most famous, we have the Roman Empire that came from southern Europe and began even to Britain. This was Celtic settlers. And the Celtics were actually okay with the Romans. The Roman wall was not built because of Celtic invasions. They just wanted two separate parts of lands and they just could not live together. They did a lot of dealing. They weren't enemies in any sense. Then we also have the Anglo-Saxons that come from the northern central Europe. The Scots and Irish, where our genetic traits cannot be found anywhere else in any of the world. We think that changed over the platelets of time, in that we've always settled here since a very long period of time, but as yet is always known as savages. Now let's move on. As well as this, there was a rising from the northeast of Vikings from the northeast of Europe. The Normans that have come from the central north of Europe in this era was also Jews and Romans was also thought to come in this period. The Jews were from South and West Asia, and the Romans were from southeastern Europe. And in this question, those people are referred to in this answer is the Roma people. To this day, we know them as Roma gypsies or travellers. They've been documented in British history since the 15th century, and this is exactly when this thing has been dated from. This has always been a few people come into the country. They are known for their basket weaving, their knowledge of horses, and their jobs always related to, they were thought to be the first people to bring horses to the UK, because horses aren't native to the UK, and this is where this question particularly tries to analyse. In this discussion, this is just one question I try to analyse. I try to analyse everything from a rural perspective, and thank you for having me here.